back in the 70s, we had freaking video games, man. It was awesome, and they got into our homes too through the Atari 2600 or the Atari VCS, however you want to look at it. We had video games in our home, and they were nothing like the arcades. And 5 years later, ColecoVision popped up, and then the Atari 5200 came out, and they were competing a little bit, and nobody was willing to buy another console except for freaking little Joey's parents down the street. That little Joey was cuckoo bananas, and we still all went over there to play Pac-Man on the Atari 5200 because it looked great. And what did we find?
This is an arcade game. This is the new Atari Super System. Arcade Atari Super System. You may like the Super System better. It has some of the best arcade and sports games. It plays every Atari cartridge. It even does something no arcade game can.
Telephone! It's Judy!
It lets you freeze the action.
Hello, Judy.
The new 5200 Super System.
Okay, it was time to replace the Atari 2600, and let's see what we got. Oh, we got the 5200, and that thing is a behemoth. The thing just freaking huge, man. Can you believe how huge this thing is? Well, not really. That's a Atari 2600 Plus on top of it, and let's swap it out. There's original Atari 2600, and it's still freaking huge, man. And it came with 4 ports, or you can later on get a 2-port model, so you could hook up these wonderful controllers that were just so freaking awesome. Good luck finding any of these controllers that work today, but they do have some fixes out there. A lot of times you can just clean the connectors inside the membranes and that'll get them to work, but a lot of the times you're going to have to replace all the innards. I can't remember seeing a kiosk for the 5200, and back then, people just, they were going to spend money. There was no video game generations, and what we got is what we got, and our parents didn't want to go out and spend more money on a new console. And most of the times we were running right to the ColecoVision to play that kiosk, because I did see a ColecoVision kiosk at my local Sears all the flippin' time. And they added more buttons to the controller, so that's why these things are so huge, because they wanted to store the controllers right in back of the console to kind of clean things up in your home entertainment system. Because if you played this as a kid, you played right in front of the console TV on the floor. Now let's look at some of the gameplay on this, and okay.
What the hell? Oh, that's right.
And I gotta remember that this thing was a death trap. You did not leave this thing plugged in, because plugging it in and unplugging it in from the back could spark, a fire. And that's why they ended up replacing these and going with a different model afterwards. Okay, now we're ready to game. And this was more like it. This looked like Pac-Man. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is not off the Atari 5200. This is off the Atari 5200 on the Game Station Go. That's why it's so crisp and looks a little more, widescreen. But I want to show you some gameplay off of the TV itself, because the translation on the CRT is so much different, and I really enjoy playing on the CRT. And I've had quite a few CRTs in the past, but this is the last one that I picked up for like $10. It's like a 19-inch, and you can see that it is a different experience playing on a CRT. And it's big, it's bulky, it's going to take up a heck of a lot of room, and you're going to have to sit closer to it. There's so many negatives to it, but the experience is so much better in my opinion. And I've had really mixed results with this controller. I have a good working controller. In some of the games, it's really fun to play with on it. The self-centering thing just drives me freaking batty, but I did buy a aftermarket controller so I could play games and try to get a little more enjoyment out of it. And this is one that I really, really like because it's got the potentiometers up front so I can dial things in, and I can use one as a paddle controller. So if I ever throw in Super Breakout, I have a lot better controllability on the game. And adding the RAM to the 5200 actually was leaps and bounds from what we had with the 2600. And the 2600 was only 128 kilobytes, so there wasn't a whole lot that they could do. These freaking programmers were awesome back in the day to get some of these games to work, like Gyrus here. And this is about the same time frame that this came out was when the home computers started coming around. So actually the 5200 Super System is actually just the 8-bit Atari computer systems lined up to just be a home gaming console. And I had the VIC-20 and I was playing games at the VIC-20. I was picking up Compute and Compute Gazette magazines, and I was just typing in my own games and making my own games at the time. So even though there was some great games coming out for the Atari 5200 Super System, I was kind of moving on a little bit. And now I'm no longer 12 years old. I am actually 56. And as a collector, I really enjoy grabbing these 5200 games, and I'm finding out that they are less and less and less at conventions, and I see a lot of the common games, but I don't see a lot of the uncommon games that, were just right on the bubble of the video game crash. And when you boot the games up, they'll have the Atari logo, and right underneath it, they will have the date that the year that they came out in. And I'm noticing a lot of these came out in 1984, and that was right after the video game crash. And that says a lot right there, because we wouldn't see the Famicom till 1984 in Japan, and then 1985, I think, in the US. So we haven't really started investing back into video games yet. And I just got a sidebar here. This Frogger video game, the controls sucked on it, man. Until I looked at the overlay, and I'll zoom in here, because there is no way my 56-year-old eyes are going to see this in a dark game room, that you could actually choose joystick or keypad, or fast or slow. You would actually have to hit the fire button and press the direction you wanted at the same time to move the Frogger, and that just sucked. And some of the gameplay was just terrible for the controls at the time. And I'm pretty sure that my 12-year-old self would have found a way to make it work, and my 56-year-old self just doesn't have the patience anymore, where I know a joystick should move in the right direction and it should have good controls for the gameplay. And there's some games that were just excellent, and there were some games that it was just the freaking controller. And I think that really did this console in, and just the timing of when it came out. And I'm sitting right now about 34 of the 69 games, and they're getting harder and harder to find. And I really do like to go back and visit and play the Atari 5200. Hey, if you haven't yet, like and subscribe to this video. I really appreciate it. And as always, game on!
Blasting bombs out of the sky. Well, you know deep down that it's gonna be a hummer. 'Cause nobody's hotter than Atari this summer. Nobody's hotter than Atari this summer.
This summer, the really hot video games come from Atari.